All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this very special edition of Believe in Buffalo, presented by FanDuel. Adam Benini of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live. Buffalo. Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Our man in the middle today is Mike Harrington, back with us, working the Sabre beat from the Buffalo News. How you guys doing today? Mike, what's up, man?
Hey, I got no complaints. I'm in the off-season, about to enter draft mode for the NHL, but lo and behold, it's not like the last 15 Sabres drafts. Let's put it that way. When you're talking the 27th pick in round one and no other picks till round four. So the juice of that one is a little different than the past. And hey, the Leafs have the number one pick, so we're going to get invaded by Leafs fans again here next Friday.
Hey, Mike, the Bills once used the 27th pick on Tre'Davious White, so there is hope. Maybe.
Yeah, the Sabres used the 28th pick, a couple of years back on Yuri Kulik and the 32nd pick on Samuelson. So I don't denigrate pick 27. I just compare it to all the years of 1, 2, 7, 9, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. It's not Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, right?
Right.
And will they use pick 27? Or do you package that up and maybe move it, given the fact you've got a lot of prospects in the system? We're going to talk about all of this over the course of the next 30 minutes or so. We wanted to do this show and do it this way because, and we're all old enough to remember the New York Knicks' last NBA championship back in 1973, right? So they end that drought. And had you asked the question last year at this time, right, which New York team was most likely to end its championship drought this past season, I think the vast majority would have said, across the state, would have said Buffalo Bills, right?
Yeah,
that probably would have been the response. So now you have the Knicks ending the drought, and it raises the question, here in Western New York, which team is closer? Which is now kind of a really legitimate question, given the trajectory of the Sabres, their turnaround and narrow exit in the second round of the playoffs against the Montreal Canadiens could very easily have been facing the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final, where, by all indication, things probably would have ended for them there. But anyway, it's an interesting question. It's one that's maybe worth debating now, so we'll go ahead and do it. And I suspect both of you, Mike, with you working the Sabre beat, and Sal, of course, still on the Bills beat, both of you would probably be up for debating this subject. I think you're probably good for that, right? At the very least.
Me and Harrington debating something?
That's never happened before, ever, on any topic.
Two of the most opinionated curmudgeons in Buffalo going at it head-to-head. Yep. Are you kidding me?
Yep, and I'm kind of probably right behind you. I'm not in your league, though, I admit.
You're not in the curmudgeon league. Yeah.
So I'll moderate. I have my days, and both of you know that.
Yeah. So what strikes me about your question, Adam, is the automatic knee-jerk reaction has to be the Bills are closer, simply because they have one of the 3 or 4 best players at the most important position in the game. Number 17 makes a difference. However, step back and you look at it, the Bills were what? 1 score away, field goal, whatever, 1 score away from being in the Final Four this year. The Sabres were 1 score away from being in the Final Four this year. So it's not as wide a gap as you would think. It's more nuanced because you have an experienced GM with the Sabres now who is going to really push for a championship. You have that with the Bills, but the Bills have that huge wild card right now of new head coach, new coordinators, new stadium. There's a whole lot of unknowns here suddenly with the Bills. So my initial reaction is the Bills remain closer to a championship, but the gap completely closed this year. And going forward, the Sabres have fewer questions in my mind right now than the Bills do.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with Mike on this because
you can't agree with me.
I have to, because you made good points there, and I do agree with them. Look, the Bills are they've been an established Super Bowl contender since 2020. And this roster is still a very good roster, especially on offense, where they hardly change anything. And in fact, the coach used to be the offensive coordinator. So everything is on that side of the ball pretty much the same. And as Mike said, they have a guy named Josh Allen who pulls the trigger. So that gives them a great advantage. The defense, we'll see. I mean, that's been their bugaboo throughout the playoff run since 2020. We're hoping that a new scheme, a few new players, a different way of doing things will be what puts the Bills over the top and finally gets them, to that Super Bowl. I think it's very possible. They've made a nice couple of additions on the defense that I think are going to help. But like Mike said, there's more questions because it is a new head coach doing this for the first time at age 36, by the way. So there's going to be some growing pains with the Bills. As for the Sabres, I love what they've done. It's been a quantum leap from where they were. This past season was one of the most enjoyable that any of us, I'm sure, could remember for quite a while. We're going back to 96 probably. Might have been the most fun season since then because it kind of came out of nowhere. So I think they're right on the cusp. My issue would be the Sabres are still a very young team. Now, I know they've got key guys that are veterans, but there's a lot of youth on that team, and there's going to be even more youth maybe this season if you say goodbye to Alex Tuch and whatever else. Malenstein, who knows where he's going to go. So I think the Bills are still positioned a little better for a championship. And then there's also, in the NHL, you got to win 4 series. The Bills have to win 2 or 3 games, preferably 2, to get to the Super Bowl. The road, to me, is just easier for the Bills than it is the Sabres.
And I always say that to people. I always say, hey, guys, the Bills can win 2 games in Orchard Park, never leave their house, and be in the Super Bowl. The Sabres have to win 16 games to win the Stanley Cup and go back and forth on the road through 4 series. It's a way different road.
All right, so let's kind of mesh this into some current news and current questions, right? And Mike, I'm going to come at you with the Sabres first here and the Alex Tuch situation. I would argue, look, I agree with the notion that the Bills are closer for all the reasons you've pointed out. Particularly, I mean, I think the Stanley Cup is the most difficult trophy to win in all of sports, actually. And we can get into that discussion a little bit later on. But right now, I think the Sabres are probably a marquee player or 2 away. A key addition, perhaps. I do like the fact that they finally have broken the playoff drought, and you've seen how some of that youth has actually performed when it's mattered most in the postseason, and the results have been very encouraging, right? I like that. But the Tuch situation for me, and goaltending I have a question about too. We can break all of these out as we go. But the Tuch situation kind of looms over this. Is there any chance there's a break in this stalemate, Mike, or is Alex Tuch out the door? And with sports science, and he's kind of made this point, would it be wise to give him more toward the long end of the term that he's looking for, because players do play more effectively at greater ages?
Yeah, and he can only 8 years from the Sabres on the CBA and with the thing changing. But I wrote actually the other day in my Inside the NHL column, I don't know why Jarmo Kekalainen's worried about what Alex Tuch's going to be like in year 6, 7, 8 of the contract. The way things are in the NHL, he's probably not going to be the GM year 6, 7, or 8 of Alex Tuch's contract for a variety of reasons. Most of these GMs just don't last very long. Yes, there's still a chance here. We saw last year even Brock Besser of Vancouver went to free agency. And who did he sign with on July 1st? He signed with the Canucks. All it takes is a phone call. I think the issue that really puts the Sabres behind the 8 ball on it is Alex Tuch and his agent are saying he is a vastly better player than Adrian Kempe of the Los Angeles Kings. And if Adrian Kempe is a $10.6 million player per year, how in the world can the Buffalo Sabres say to Alex Tuch, you're $8.5, $9 million player? And that's
Mike, you would agree with that, right? You would agree with that Tuch is a better player than Kempe. Absolutely, right? Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what in the world the Los Angeles Kings were doing last November, giving Kempe 8 years and $85 million, but they did. And as soon as they did, you sensed there was a problem going to happen with Tuch. Now, they were focused more on hockey, and all the signs from Tuch and his agent, everything behind the scenes was same thing. Don't worry. We're talking. And it'll get taken care of, blah, blah, blah. And then the season just went, and nothing got taken care of. And then the playoffs started, and they weren't talking during the playoffs. And then the biggest thing, Adam and Sal, Game 7 against Montreal, they lose. We walk into the dressing room. The dressing room's empty. Darlene's waiting to talk to us. Thompson is going to be coming out shortly, they tell us. Everyone else is gone. And I walk in. I'm going to the right to go talk to Darlene, and I notice to the left, Alex Tuch is sitting in his locker stall in full equipment. Everything still on except for his skates. His blue Sabres jersey, his socks, his pants, everything still on. And he is just looking straight ahead. And I said to myself, this guy knows he's gone and does not want to take this jersey off because he thinks he's not putting it back on. And I cannot get that image out of my mind. There are no videos of it. There are no stills of it. You can't take stills in the locker room, so no one has the picture. The picture is just loaded in my brain. And I think a lot of this is family things. I don't think it has anything to do with hockey per se. His wife is from Vancouver. There's a ton of talk that their preference is to go to the West Coast somewhere. You know, so if it's a family decision, that really has nothing to do with hockey. So and the other thing, let's be honest, the Sabres don't want to give Alex Tuch $10 or $11 million a year. Given this free agent class, I think multiple teams will be calling him up, offering him that. I think he's going to have to pick which team he goes to because multiple teams are going to offer him the Kempe money and maybe even a little more. So
you're telling me, Mike, that actually being at the event is useful, right? Being able to actually go in the locker room and see things as opposed to, you know, the guy at home on Twitter making his opinions. Like, you actually saw this with your own two eyes that nobody else did. So imagine that. Imagine how it actually works that way.
That's called insight and background. And sometimes people say they see all the press conferences now. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more nuance to it, as you guys know. And that was the most striking scene to me in the entire playoffs. And it was not aired publicly. It didn't get out anywhere because it couldn't get out anywhere.
Right. Well, well done, you. Doing the job the way it's supposed to be done.
Yep. Message sent, speaking to trends in modern media. Okay. So let's follow up on that point. If he does go, which he likely will, I mean, the cupboard is stocked for the Sabres.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of youth coming up, right? That they're not going to be in Rochester. They're going to be in Buffalo. Does that change the equation, though, in terms of the time interval needed for the Sabres to compete for and win a Stanley Cup?
Because here's the deal.
It does either.
Jarmo Kekalainen is going to be bold here. I guarantee you there's going to be one trade where you guys are going to say, and everybody's going to say, they traded for that guy? They got that guy? And there might be one trade, or at the same trade, where you're going to say, they traded that guy away? There's going to be something like that. And then who knows? They could dabble in free agency. All of a sudden, boy, if you're a free agent and Buffalo calls you up, you're not hanging the phone up automatically like you have for the last 10 years. Right. You know, if Alex Tuch leaves and the Sabres call up Anders Lee, is Anders Lee hanging the phone up right now? Would he be closer to a Stanley Cup on Long Island in Buffalo? Way closer in Buffalo. So there's not that chance that a veteran player now will completely say 100% no to the Buffalo Sabres at all.
Mike, obviously I'm not versed on the Sabres salary cap situation. I understand the Bills situation. If they don't bring Tuch back, are they still in a good position? Because I think I read probably one of your stories that even if he doesn't come back, next year is the year they're going to have the space. There's what's going on with this year that something is blocking it up that's going to prevent them from maybe doing something big.
It's the Jeff Skinner buyout, Sal. The Jeff Skinner buyout. The Jeff Skinner buyout for 26-27 is $6.44 million. For the 3 years after that finishes the buyout out, it is $2.44 million. So they're paying an extra $4 million on the Skinner buyout this year, which hurts. But again, they did the Skinner buyout when they needed to do it. It was the right time. It was a hockey move. They just have to deal with that situation. But I don't think the Skinner buyout impacts Tuch per se. It could impact what ends up happening with Benson, what ends up happening with Byram this year, Malenstein. But if the Sabres want Tuch, they can just pick up the phone and say, all right, and I think there are, like I said, there are family considerations here, but the Sabres want Tuch. Tuch wants to stay. I think if the Sabres called up and said, 885, obviously he's signing, but I think the Sabres are calling up and saying 868, 872, and he's like, no, I think this is nothing more. They want him. He wants them. They're not trying to shed him as an old player. This is nothing more than money.
So if they do bring him back, I'm sorry, if they don't bring him back, what does that leave? Do they have some room to play with here? Do they have money to go out and get an impact guy? Sure.
They can go out and make a trade. They could go out and sign a free agent. I mean, that's the thing, is they need to know. They need to know what's going to happen here. They need to know if they have a shot. They need to know if Tuch is going to find out he doesn't have what he thinks he's going to have and call them up like Besser did with Vancouver. I've been partly sitting here going, okay, the finals are over. Is there a trade coming here in the next 10 days, which basically signals goodbye to Alex Tuch? I don't know. I mean, anything's possible here. These GMs all got together at the Combine. I just think it's a really bad situation for Alex Tuch. He better go to the West. He better go to Seattle, Anaheim, wherever. I mean, places he's not going to win as much in Buffalo, because he better not turn around and sign with, God forbid, the Leafs, or sign with Columbus, or, well, what are you doing? All this talk of I grew up a child of the goat heads and all the family photos, and then you leave for $1 million just when the team gets good after you sat here the first 4 years. So this is a tough reputation play for Alex Tuch.
So, it sounds like a happy wife, happy life situation, because he's from Syracuse.
He's from Syracuse.
He's willing to go to the West Coast to play for a team that might not be a playoff contender because of his wife. Wow.
And where is she from, Sal?
Vancouver.
She's from Vancouver. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get the idea of what the pull is here based on how this ends.
All right. So that takes us inside the Tuch situation. Before we shift gears and go to the Bills, you've got to note the turnaround for Buffalo, right? From early December on, and the fact that they played as well, if not better, than any team in the National Hockey League. Okay. And then you get into the playoffs, and look, the goaltending situation, the rotation didn't work out to the extent that Lindy Ruff would have hoped, or anybody would have hoped ultimately. But then you look at Carolina, right? And you've got a multiple goaltender situation. So the model, I think, is the correct one.
Yeah.
It can very much work. The question is, do they have the goaltenders to make that model work?
Well, I mean, they were pretty good the whole season. They were pretty good against Boston. I think you can make the argument Lindy may have strayed from it too far. Those guys were used to basically alternating. And he took Luukkonen out, and he went to Lyon, and he stuck with Lyon well into the next series. Then he took Lyon out. He may have rode Lyon too long. But I think the Morgan Geekie center ice goal was a real confidence crusher for the coaching staff. But I still think they have the right guys. I remind people who just won the Stanley Cup: Frederik Andersen and Brandon Bussey. Mm-hmm. Okay, Brandon Bussey was Colton Ellis, basically. He was an October waiver pickup. I remind people to check the salary cap of all the high-priced goalies in the league this year. Shesterkin and Bobrovsky and Hellebuck. What did they do this year? They did nothing. None of them were in the playoffs past round one. I think we're seeing, don't overspend on the goalie. Build a better team. You can win with lower goalie. Darcy Kemper won a cup with Colorado a few years ago. Really, in the last 10 years or so, other than Vasilevsky, who's had a great goalie? Vegas won a cup with Aiden Hill. Maybe you could argue Bobrovsky.
Panthers, yeah.
But he was kind of crummy during those regular seasons. So it's been done both ways. I think the jury remains out to some degree on Luukkonen because of his career arc. He tends to alternate good years and bad years, which would mean a bad year is coming up, but now does he mature and put 2 good years in a row together? enough about the Alex Newhook goal. It was a deflected goal. What do you want to do? I don't want to hear about that. People rail on that. I think if Montreal had scored the game winner on a nifty 2-on-1 tap, and we wouldn't be having a goaltending conversation. Too many people are obsessing about the Newhook goal. I think the Sabres are going to run it back, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you can point to hesitance on the offensive blue line too, right?
Sure. I mean, they lost the puck. Thompson and Dahlin lost the puck. I mean, get it in deep. It's overtime.
Yeah, there's your two best players coughing it up. So
right.
But that's that's water under the bridge at this point. So now let's shift to the Bills. And Sal, we'll turn to you on this one first. And kind of the big question, obviously, you've got Joe Brady with the new head coach. Things have to change on the defensive side, and they will. To what extent remains to be seen with this new scheme and Jim Leonard as defensive coordinator. That's the biggest area where the Bills have fallen short in postseason play. And the primary reason Sean McDermott is out the door and Joe Brady is promoted to head coach. But the big question, the MO for the Bills is they put just a ton on Josh Allen's shoulders, right? And let him carry the vast majority of the load, right? And then you see, the fan base perks up when you see the Patriots bringing in A.J. Brown, right? Or Myles Garrett to the Rams, right? And Les Snead in L.A. all in, again, and F the picks and all of that whole mantra, right? Have the Bills done enough? Have they lightened enough of the load on Josh Allen's shoulders? And Sal, you and I have touched on this. It bears repeating again. We'll get Mike's take first, but you, Sal, let's go to you first. I don't know that I know the answer to that question. The answer isn't an obvious yes.
No,
at this point.
It isn't. No, it isn't. They, have they done enough? Is Bradley Chubb enough to improve the pass rush? I'm not quite sure about that. Is D. Alford automatically the better player than Teron Johnson at slot corner? We have no idea. So no, they haven't done enough. Look, Bean has whined and complained about his salary cap situation ever since they gave Josh the original big money contract. Patrick Mahomes just signed for the gross national product of some countries in Kansas City. How did they do it, right? So with Bean and the salary cap argument, it gets a little frustrating. There are ways to do it. Adam, you just pointed out the Rams do it all the time. They do it all the time with the way they manipulate the salary cap to bring in big name players. So has Bean done enough to get true stars on this team? No, he hasn't. He's picked well in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. Okay, those are guys you got to have, but it sure would be nice if they could hit an absolute home run. And as we pointed out with that late draft pick in the 1st round, it is tougher to do, but it would be nice once in a while that he could bring in a true star free agent. Was DJ Moore in that trade? Right. The guy, he's a guy. He's in his 9th year. He's a guy. He's been a good player. Is he the guy who puts him over the top? Like maybe A.J. Brown could do for Drake May in New England? No, he's not. So we've had this argument time and time again, Adam. They lack star power. They have one of the biggest stars in the world in Josh Allen, and they don't have a whole hell of a lot more in the at least good star category, right? The mortal star category, if you will.
Well, and they've tried, too, on defense already. I mean, you think of Von Miller, you think of Joey Bosa. They're trying to bring in names and it doesn't work. Let's see what DJ Moore brings in. And the other thing is, I go back to this year. Yeah, the talent gap could be there. You don't know in different positions, but the coaching is such a question, and good and bad. I mean, the coordinators, we'll see what Leonard has to do. But here's the other one. I like the stealth hire here of John Fox.
Yeah.
I think when you have a rookie head coach, having a veteran guy who's been around like John Fox is really something, it's relatively unique. Certainly it's out of the box thinking. I really like what that could provide this team. But ultimately you got to get things done on the field. And you're right. If you're looking at the defense, John Fox can certainly have his 2 cents on that side of the ball too. But we still are going to sit here and say, can they stop anybody when they get in the playoffs? It's still the question I have.
The Fox hiring was really a nice job. It wasn't that Bean pushed John Fox on Brady, but he certainly facilitated the meeting because Brady really had no contact with John Fox before this, and it was good. It was good that Brady took that direction and understood that this could be a very positive thing. He's got a sounding board now to, run things by, a guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls as a head coach. So I think that was you're right, a really nice under the radar signing. The Joe Brady as head coach thing, yeah, we're going to have to learn exactly how he can handle that situation. Being a play caller on offense is one thing. And I think Sean McDermott learned this very early on in his career. Being the CEO on game day is a little bit different. And Joe Brady is going to have, I think, quite a task to get used to that right away, which is where Fox will really help. The Jim Leonard question, look, did a really nice job as a coordinator in college at Wisconsin. Hasn't done it in the NFL. We'll see. Most people are like all excited, crazy. I'm tapping the brakes as usual until I actually see what this defense is going to look like. But I think it's a big question mark that they can all of a sudden bring in a new scheme, only add a couple players who have played in that type of scheme, and we're going to expect that everything is going to be great from the word go. I'm not expecting that at all.
And Adam, you have to go back to the original question here. The Bills have a rookie head coach who has been up in the booth and now is on the sidelines trying to run everything. Yep. The Sabres have a Hall of Fame bound head coach who should have been the coach of the year this year in the NHL, without any question, who is going to probably win his 1,000th game next year, a good chance, will coach his 2,000th game next year. One of the legendary figures in Buffalo coaching history is behind the bench with the Sabres. That obviously is a huge check mark in their favor over the Bills until we really see what Joe Brady becomes.
Yeah, right. No question. And just speaking to Lindy Ruff for one moment, have you ever seen him going back to his first stint here, Mike? And, I think back to, the conference finals in 98, the loss to Washington, Joey Juneau, right? And obviously the cup final in 99. And then you had the post-lockout teams, Drury Briere and all of that. No, he had Dominic Hasek for the first portion of that, and he had a guy named Ryan Miller for the second portion in net. So the equation was a little bit different. But I don't know that I've ever seen Ruff push as many of the right buttons in the regular season and in the postseason as I have in any particular season that he's coached, the many that he's coached over the years in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So, that's as good a job as he's ever done, and it accentuates the point, Ruff versus Brady, and the question surrounding Brady and Orchard Park.
Because Ruff had to push buttons. Joe Brady still has one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league to run out there. Ruff had a last-place team on December the 9th and met with his players, took some of the ropes off, stopped ragging on him as much at certain times, pushed other times, changed the lines the right way, emphasized his top 4 defensemen, went to a goalie rotation, which is totally anti-Ruff. Ruff's whole career has been riding a guy. And he got the results he wanted, and the players enjoyed playing for him. You talk about, there was a lot of sniping behind Lindy Ruff's back in the old days. There was no sniping behind Lindy Ruff's back with this team. This is what they wanted. They wanted to get pushed. They saw the result of what he was trying to get them to do, and it just accentuated their feeling that this was the way to go.
Mike, so that's a really good point, okay? Because I interviewed Ruff. You may remember this. It was right before his run, the first run, ended. It was NBC had, I think it was Sabres Penguins for like a matinee game or whatever. So we got one-on-one with Regier and Ruff and really got into it. Lindy knew. He kind of sat down and said, well, I'm about to get grilled. And because you had to ask those questions.
Sure.
And he really opened up about the need for him to evolve, that players, the personalities, what players expected from a head coach. The hard-ass days were going by the boards, right?
Yep.
Into a new, more evolved type situation. Ruff knew that and was trying to change, and he was late on that curve at the end of his first stint in Buffalo, and the results reflected it. He went elsewhere, right? Obviously, came back, and what you saw this time around was a highly evolved Lindy Ruff. It clearly played itself out.
New Jersey. New Jersey was a huge moment for him. He had a 100-point season. He dealt with guys like Jack Hughes. He dealt with all their Instagram accounts and everything, and he said that. And I think that was a real learning stage, even in his early 60s, what happened with the Devils. And it was a surprise to him that he got fired when he did. The GM screwed it up, didn't get him goalies. And he came to Buffalo, and he was much more mellow. He was much more mellow with the players, with support staff, the PR staff, the media. He just understands it's a different time.
So let's pivot, Sal, and go to Joe Brady, right? And if there's one that we don't know the answer to a lot of these questions, he appears to be much more in touch, given his age, given his career trajectory and all those things. I sensed it right from the opening press conference that his approach was going to be different than that of Sean McDermott. Sean, we all know, Sal, was wound really tight when he showed up in 2017. And I think at the start, but he did really evolve as a head coach, right? There's no question. But still, there was that sort of wrestler's mentality, right? And I mean that in a good way because it led to results, but with all the discipline and everything else. And look at the culture they built, right? I mean, it's hard to argue with the consistency of the success that they've had. Brady seems to be taking a very different approach, almost by design. Do you sense that? And how does it relate to what we're talking about on the opposite end of given the fact he's a first-time head coach of the Lindy Ruff discussion Mike and I just had?
Yeah, look, that is the biggest question mark going into the season. Joe Brady I think he's the youngest coach in the NFL at 36 years old. As I said earlier, it's nice that he's been here. The offense is his, so there's not a lot of transition that has to take place on that side of the ball. That's a good thing. But man, Brady has not been in the wars like Lindy Ruff, obviously. Remember, and he's also in a hugely different situation here. Sean McDermott came into an organization that hadn't made the playoffs in 17 years. The expectations were not high. It was like, okay, Sean, can you turn this shit around and get us at least back to relevancy? And obviously the first year they backed in, but they did it. And then after missing the playoffs the second year in a reset, then it started. And he was in the playoffs every year from 2019 on. Joe Brady walks into this situation with a humongous amount of pressure on his back. He's walking. How many first-time head coaches in the NFL walk into a situation where you've got a Super Bowl team on your hands? You better not screw it up. And I get it that they haven't been there yet, but they better not be going backwards with Joe Brady. Sean McDermott had a nice little cushion for those. Really, if it had taken 3 years, Sean would have still been okay because there was no expectation. Joe Brady comes in, you better be good at the start, or if this team goes backwards, it's going to be on you. So yeah, much different situation for him.
Sal, they got 2.2 billion reasons to not go backwards this year under Joe Brady.
Sure do.
Yeah,
they sure do. They are opening this new palace. They cannot suddenly step in it with a first-time head coach. That's one of the reasons I was a little surprised they did that, because of this new stadium situation. You cannot go belly up. This is not the year to have the step back 8-9 record and miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see.
It comes back to the play in Denver. I mean, Sean basically lost his job because, what's his name? Cooks couldn't secure the ball. I mean, if you catch the damn ball, they win the game. They go to the AFC Championship game. They probably are going to beat the Patriots. I think the Bills would have beaten the Patriots. But he doesn't catch the ball, and Sean pays the price. Now, I understand that Pegula had gotten tired of them not taking that final step, but they were this close away to probably taking the step. So when he pulled the plug on Sean, okay, I understood it to a degree, but I did not agree with it. I didn't think this was the time to do it.
No.
Well, it's interesting, though. I mean, what about the discussion? Vic Carucci reported it at the time. The tension with Bean, right? The sit down with Bean and Pegula, about the roster's not good enough, that sort of thing, right? And now you look at a different dynamic with Bean really at the top of the mountain with more power than he's ever had, and a first-time head coach. It's worth pointing out that distinction too.
Yeah, but I also think, Adam, that stuff gets blown out of proportion sometimes. Yes, there was a little bit of tension probably between Bean and McDermott again about, really, as we just talked about, Bean's inability to bring in true difference makers. I think that kind of frustrated Sean. They had a couple opportunities at the trade deadline last year. We all heard Sean talking about Jacoby Myers, how good he's been, and Brandon didn't get that guy in there. So there's a little bit of tension, but Mike, how many teams have had tension between GMs and coaches and they go win championships? That should not have been the overriding factor in Sean getting fired.
No, I just think Terry got tired. I agree with you, Sal. I think if they go to New England and they get to the championship game and lose, Sean doesn't get fired. I think Terry kind of overreacted, but I do understand why. There are teams that do it. You look at the Vegas Golden Knights did it with Bruce Cassidy, and they almost won a cup. You sometimes change out the coach and you do take that last step, and the guy who got you there all those years doesn't reap the rewards, and that's what Terry's thinking. But and I get it too from this standpoint. We all talk about the 90s Bills. Okay, is this era of Josh Allen football never going to go to a Super Bowl? Is that possible? Could Josh Allen become Phillip Rivers? And I think Terry Pegula is sitting there going, how have we not been in a Super Bowl yet? We need to do something big. Maybe Sean is not the guy to get us there. And I think that was in his thought process.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
I mean, but look, back to the original question, and we're going to wrap this up here now. I get the schedule much more difficult this year. They've got a gauntlet straight out of the gate. I could envision maybe a regression in terms of the record, but I still feel like unless there's something that really goes south that we're not aware of, or Brady really sputters, or that defense just really struggles to convert to this scheme, there are a number of those questions. But I feel like when you're talking about the Bills, you're talking about a team that's going to be in a divisional playoff or maybe an AFC championship game. And once again, it's going to come down to a play or two. Right. I feel like that's still the team we're talking about here.
Right now.
Right.
But by October, when the Sabres start, maybe we'd have a different opinion based on what we've seen in the early season.
All right. So let's talk Vegas here. FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others on the Believe network of podcasts. Super Bowl odds for this coming season. Los Angeles Rams are your favorites at plus 550. And then you've got the Bills tied with Seattle in the second spot at plus 1,000. From a Stanley Cup perspective, and Mike, I don't know if you've looked at these. I mean, it's obviously really early, but for what it's worth at this point, there's so many variables and questions we don't know answers to. Carolina Hurricanes, once again, your favorite, plus 650, followed by Colorado, Tampa Bay, Edmonton, Minnesota, Florida, Vegas, Dallas, and then the Buffalo Sabres ahead of the New York Rangers. Sabres at plus 33.
Why does everybody still love Tampa Bay?
I know.
They've lost in the first round 4 years in a row. They had the
Why
MVP.
does everyone love Edmonton? Why Edmonton?
Well, I mean, they were just
they
in
have
the finals. They were just in the finals back-to-back years. I mean, the Tampa Bay love is just absurd. They've lost in the first round 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
But John Cooper was the coach of the year.
Right. Period. What guy wins the coach of the year after blowing an 8-point lead in the division in the last 26 games? Don't get me going on this.
I generally don't give a shit about any of that stuff, but I honestly could not believe that those broadcasters picked Cooper over Ruff.
That was ridiculous.
I was like, I don't care at all about awards. I don't care that Josh Allen won an MVP. I'm a team guy. I was shocked. I was completely shocked by that.
It was a dereliction of their duties to make a vote. 40 guys didn't even turn in their ballots. That's enough for me to say ridiculous. Take the broadcaster's vote away.
Right. Take it away. What are you doing? You have a responsibility, right?
Yeah.
It's an obligation. You have the right to do it. Exercise the right. You're a part of a very important decision. I agree with that 100%. As a broadcaster, it's disgusting.
Yeah. If we don't turn in our ballots for the Hart and the Calder, we vote for those trophies. If you don't turn in your ballot, you're gone. You lose your voting privilege.
Right. Exactly. All right, gentlemen, I think we got a lot off our collective chests, didn't we? A good discussion. Great job.
And we didn't even get to the Yankees yet today, but you know.
Oh, they're fine. They're fine. They got some injury problems. They're fine.
Sal,
they're playing better.
You know, Sal's got a Yankees pod coming here.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
And Mike's a baseball guy.
Mike will be on the show. I'm probably thinking numerous times too. Yes, Believe is going to allow me and Mike Lindsley, who is a Syracuse former radio guy in Syracuse, does his own stuff now. We're going to do a Yankees podcast called Pinstripe People, and it's going to be debuting. We're hoping Friday morning. We're going to probably do it after the morning after each series, which is when my Pinstripe People newsletter comes out. It'll be tied to that loosely. But yeah, so look for it on your podcast feeds pretty soon. Pinstripe People. You've got two Yankees, heavy Yankees fans who will be unfiltered. I guarantee you that. It'll be unfiltered analysis of the 27-time and holding New York Yankees. And by the way, the Pinstripe People newsletter, unfortunately, I think I'm going to be going to a paid subscription model on that very soon. So I hope people are going to want to pay for it, because I've had a lot of readers that are really avid about it. I'm just hoping they're going to, pick up the tab a little bit here. So that's going to be happening in the very near future. So thank you for letting me blab on about the Yankees.
No problem. And Mike, I mean, Sal is such a fixture on Twitter during the Yankee games. I mean, he's almost a must.
Only when they're losing. I don't really tweet when they're winning.
The best time for Sal to be on Twitter is when you have an interleague game between the Yankees and the Cubs. And Sal is going back and forth like a pinball machine, can't figure out which way to go. It can be hilarious.
Now, the absolute time to be paying attention to my Twitter is when they're playing the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, or the Rays.
Hate the Blue Jays.
I loathe those three teams. You could not hate anything more than I hate those three. The Orioles don't bother me in the division, but those three teams, and lately, especially the Blue Jays. So, yeah, if you want to pay attention to my Twitter feed and be really entertained, that's the time to do it.
All right. He's a must read on Twitter. There's no question. And Pinstripe People, it's excellent. I'm a subscriber.
Pinstripe People is.
I'm happy to go to
a lot of effort into that.
I'm happy to go to a paid model for that. Even though we work.
I'll
together,
hold you to it.
I mean, give me a discount, maybe. All right. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. You're obviously you cover baseball as well, both at the AAA and Major League level. Great stuff there. Hall of Famer Mike Harrington, and you got some Sabres news coming up here with the draft fast approaching and free agency as well. So we'll look for that in the Buffalo News. Really appreciate your time, man. What else do you have going on there? What else do you have going on to the Buffalo News that?
Well, it's just it's a not a quiet time for the Sabres at all when you're talking the draft, free agency, development camp. And then by the time Sabres development camp ends and the hockey free agency starts to fizzle out, you're going to be 10 days away from the start of Bills camp. So, there's no off season in the Buffalo News and at oldbuffalonews.com.
No, absolutely not. And Sal, enjoy your vacation, man. I know you're on it.
I'll try. I've been doing more work than I should be, but yeah.
We all know.
I'm going to the ballpark in Rochester today with a couple of my old buddies from the DNC, so that'll be a nice day.
Yeah, we all know that feeling. All right, gentlemen, thanks very much. Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Mike Harrington, Buffalo News, working the Sabre beat. This is Adam Bonini of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live, Buffalo, thanking you for tuning into this special edition, Believe in Buffalo, debating the question, Bills or Sabres, who is closer to ending the championship drought for Buffalo in Western New York. Thanks for being with us on Believe in Buffalo, presented by FanDuel.